business.
I have them.
Fourth night event in a row for yesterday.
I just can't get enough.
The hair's coming in nicely. No, it's a little bit better. You could say the same for me.
I want to get a story behind that.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order a May 23rd meeting of the Hastings and Hudson Board of Education, a regular meeting. Just to note, we're going after public comment. We're going to move into executive session and then resume the regular meeting. And it's nice to have an audience tonight, and it's a great reason to have them. So welcome everybody. There are some announcements which are part of the public record listed on board docs, but we're going to move right into the reason most of you are here, which is tonight's tenure recommendations. So we start there.
So, Melissa, you want to make the honors of calling people up, the speakers, or you want me to do that? So, we are quite thrilled to be recognizing 5 individuals for tenure this evening, the recommendations. Principals, or in one case an assistant principal, because one of the principals could not be here. We do believe family first, and Amy had to be with family. I think it's a music concert. Mm-hmm. So she's given Michael some things to read, highly scripted, I'm advised, but we should not be surprised, right? Without further ado, we'll have Michael Larco come up to speak for the Hillside tenure recommended.
And there should be a microphone right there.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
There we go. So I have the honor of presenting 3 fabulous educators on behalf of Principal Cases. Would it be okay if I call them up one at a time so they can stand here and just feel the love?
That would be lovely.
Right. In no particular order, Ms. Bragg, would you mind coming up first to join me? It's with great pleasure that we recommend Miss Jamie Bragg for tenure in the area of elementary K-6. Miss Bragg was hired on August 28, 2019. She holds certification in childhood education 1 through 6. Miss Bragg quickly became the go-to teacher on her grade level when in COVID-19, all instruction shifted to virtual learning. Her ease with technology and willingness to take the lead were demonstrated immediately. Ms. Bragg reworked the first grade curriculum into a digital platform to ensure that learners across the grade level had remote access to materials. In addition, she served as mentor for the team members, teaching them the Google Suite, creating remote schedules for teachers and students, and revising curricular experiences for the virtual platform. She was deliberate in developing strong relationships with her students. When you walk into Ms. Bragg's classroom, you will find her having snack alongside the children, talking about their weekend plans, their families, friends, favorite things, and more. Ms. Bragg has been seen swinging on the swings or playing tag in the backyard, and it's important to her that she and her students can have fun together. Ms. Bragg has even dropped into special area classes during her prep time to see her students in action in another learning environment. Her commitment to her students is unmatched. Ms. Bragg celebrates her favorite mistakes, which students help them learn. She creates a slideshow of common mistakes in math or word study, allowing students to see mistakes and thinking that peers could make. Then Ms. Bragg encourages students to collaborate with peers in order to analyze their mistakes. This helps students to better understand the concept. Ms. Bragg is a flexible thinker. She often sees multiple perspectives. For this reason, she was selected to serve on our Hillside Math Committee, which was tasked with building an understanding around the mathematical practices, diving into the standards, reviewing multiple math programs, and ultimately selecting a program for Hillside going forward. Ms. Bragg's willingness to learn, thoughtfulness in questioning, and excitement around trying something new all contributed to the excellence that she brought to the committee. Ms. Bragg has also demonstrated excellence as the advisor for our student newspaper, the Hillside Insider. When Ms. Bragg decided to take on this new role, she re-envisioned what was possible for an elementary school newspaper. Ms. Bragg decided to engage 4th graders in the writing process, allowing them time to write about something of interest. Whether it be news, interviews, sports, travel reviews, or comics, all children have the opportunity to be published writers at Hillside. Ms. Bragg shared that the greatest rewards are the feedback from the students who want multiple copies to send to family members and friends, and younger students who tell that they want to be on the newspaper club when they're in 4th grade. Ms. Bragg is growing writers across Hillside, giving them both voice and an audience. When asked about working with Ms. Bragg, her colleagues shared that she has, and these are just a couple, not all, a warm, caring teacher who puts the needs of all her students at the core of everything she does, a thoughtful educator, an outstanding advisor for the Hillside newspaper, genuine interest in helping them learn about being good writers and the importance of working together to create a successful newspaper, always eager to learn more to further the positive impact she makes on students, and her passion for teaching is contagious. We are pleased to recommend Ms. Jamie Bragg for tenure in Hastings.
Thank you for this honor. You know, I was so lucky to land a job here at Hillside 4 years ago, and I'm luckier now that I get to continue my career in this one-of-a-kind school district. During my time here, I've got to become a part of another community. I've grown as an educator and a colleague. I've got to share in the love and joy of teaching first graders, and just that's an amazing experience. And I've made lifelong friends that are all here. Thanks, first grade team. I can't wait to see where I go from here.
Thank you.
Miss Tam. Linda Tam, everybody. Okay, 2 of 3. It's with great pleasure that we recommend Miss Linda Tam for tenure in the area of elementary K-6. Miss Tam was hired on August 28th, 2019. She holds a certification in childhood education 1 through 6. Ms. Tam is an organized educator. Early in her tenure, Ms. Tam recognized the importance of pacing guide in writing and took the lead in its creation for her 4th grade team. Ms. Tam created a supportive learning environment for students. She promotes positive decision-making with her students, looking to set up time for success. Ms. Tam elicits her students' ideas in creating classroom goals and continually updates these goals once they are achieved. One observer noted, quote, "It's evident from the moment one walks into the classroom that students know the classroom expectations and are ready for learning." Ms. Tam looks to celebrate student successes. In the writing process, at the end of the unit, Ms. Tam celebrates her students' growth in the goals of the unit through student presentations, group share-outs, and whole class gallery walks. Students have a chance to review peer work and provide warm glows and grows. Most importantly, Ms. Tam works to connect learning to the real world. She wants students to see that the skill they are learning is not just for school, but instead, it's transferable to life. She tries to incorporate direct instruction with inquiry and play, giving students the opportunity to collaborate with peers. Ms. Tam has served as our ELA committee for the past year. Through this work, she has contributed to develop a development of tools for our K-4 teachers, including learning progressions in writing, which help in vertical alignment and conferring with students, parent letters to enhance family collaboration and communication, and pre- and post-assessments to have a better understanding of the skills that our students have at the start and end of the unit. When asked about working with Ms. Tam, her colleagues shared the following. Ms. Tam is kind and thoughtful, good at helping students navigate social, emotional situations, a calm presence with her students, helpful and supportive of new team members. There are more, you can check them out on the board amendments, but those are just a quick snapshot. We are happy to recommend Ms. Linda Tam for tenure in Hastings.
I just want to say thank you so much for having such a welcoming community since day one when I arrived in Hastings, and I can feel it every day since, and I really am excited to really experience the growth at Hastings and with my colleagues and with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Peisel. Amanda Peisel. It is with great pleasure as well that we recommend Ms. Amanda Peisel for tenure in the area of elementary K-6. Ms. Peisel was hired on August 28, 2019. She holds certification in childhood education 1 through 6, early childhood birth through 2, and literacy birth through 6. Ms. Peisel joined our team in the 2019-2020 school year. In March 2020, when COVID-19 changed our school structure, Ms. Pizell immediately stood out as a leader. She quickly took on the task of planning out the reading curriculum for the team, building a scope and sequence that aligned with our literacy standards and goals. Ms. Pizell is also a strong collaborator. As an ICT co-teacher, she has been deliberate in developing a team approach with other teachers, teaching assistants, and service providers to best serve her students. Ms. Pizell set high expectations for all of her learners and provides the necessary support to ensure that they all meet success. One observer noted, there is a wonderful chemistry established throughout the classroom. Ms. Pizell serves as our 4th grade student council advisor, where she works with our elected 4th grade students to better Hillside and our community. She facilitates leadership and community building in our student council representatives through experiences including core value read-alouds, family-to-family coat drives, Earth Week celebration, 3rd grade student council presentation. Ms. Pizell has also served on our Special Education Advisory Committee and Interview Committee for Special Education Teachers. When asked about working with Ms. Pizell, her colleagues shared the following. Again, there's an exhaustive list, but here's a sample. Committed to bringing her best possible teaching and learning experiences to her students. Positive attitude, finds the good in every situation. Makes learning fun and engaging for kids, always connects learning to their own lives. Develops close relationships with students and parents, makes sure to reach out even just for little things and positive notes. We'll reach out to outside tutors, coaches, therapists, and outside service providers to find ways to best support students in the class. A real collaborator in that regard. It is our pleasure to recommend Ms. Amanda Pizell for tenure in Hastings.
Hello. I just want to take a moment to mention that I've worked at other schools prior to coming to Hastings, and I was blown away by the amount of support and the welcoming environment that I found here at Hillside and in the larger Hastings community. When I came in was a very turbulent time for many of us. So I just want to thank all of you administrators and my colleagues for making this such an amazing place to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Sort of. Is it on? You have a loud voice. There we go.
You're lucky you're not at the high school. Okay. First of all, I just want to make a public service announcement. On behalf of the Hastings administrators, where I serve as president, congratulations to all of you who are getting tenure tonight. Tenure is an important part of any teacher's experience, and we're not awarding you tenure. I'm sorry, board. You guys have earned it, and be proud of that. It's not an easy place to get tenure, and no school should be an easy place to get tenure, but you've worked hard, you've proven yourself, and you come every day. It's about kids. So congratulations to all of you. Mr. Day, would you join me up here, Mr. Day? I present Mr. Day on behalf of Jen Spirelli, our middle school principal, Camilla Dawkins, our assistant principal, Ms. Hardesty, the high school assistant principal, and of course myself. Eric Day was hired on May 7th, 2019 in the tenure area of music. Mr. Day holds a bachelor's degree in music education, trombone principal from the University of Michigan, and a master's degree from New York University in musical theater writing composition. Before coming to Hastings, Mr. Day spent 6 years at KIPP New York City College Prep High School as the band and orchestra director. In addition, Mr. Day is a freelance musician and often plays bass or trombone as a sub-performer in Broadway musicals, as well as other events and productions throughout the tri-state area. Mr. Day began in 2019-2020 school year teaching 5 ensembles from grades 7 through 12, the 7th and 8th grade band, the 7th and 8th grade orchestra, high school band, high school orchestra, high school jazz band. He has since added AP Music Theory, and up to a couple of weeks ago, he is now has the steel drum ensemble working again. In addition, there were those 7:15 a.m. rehearsals for band and orchestra. There were Wednesday evenings for jazz band, Saturday pep band for football season. All groups continued to thrive and grow with the addition of the FMS Jazz Band in 2022. We can say without question, the programs did not miss a beat. In fact, Mr. Day explored opportunities to enrich the programs by bringing in guest performers, composers, and musicians to work with our students. Mr. Day is the consummate professional who continuously finds ways to hone his craft as a teacher and become a relevant contributor to the larger community. He's a member of the National Association of Music Education, New York State Music Association, the Westchester County School Music Association. He has been an active with all groups observing, conducting through all county and all area and all state rehearsals. He usually attends at least one NISMA conference per year, but due to the pandemic, he has taken a pause. He plans to attend this summer in Albany. If you look around the room, you see his colleagues, Mr. Riss, Mr. Carini, his department chair, Mr. Rubino, colleagues, Mr. Elliott, and Mr. Adamo. And you want to take and Ms. Conqueror. And he just came off of planning all aspects of the high school music trip to Hershey Park in April, where 100 students participated. I can go on and on, but it's with great pleasure we present Mr. Eric Day for tenure.
Thanks, everybody. I'll keep it super brief. I just feel super grateful to have landed here and very inspired by my colleagues. We have a lot of fun together, and I learn from them every day. And I'm just constantly surprised and inspired by the students who keep it fun and fresh and push me to think long-term, come up with creative ways to just get better and have more fun together. So thank you so much. I feel super honored and appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Day's son, it's past his bedtime, so Sebastian has to go to bed, so Lori, his wife, is babysitting, obviously. But she's here in spirit. Faye Barenfeld is our next recipient. Faye is joined tonight by her husband, Scott, and her in-laws, Mr. and Mrs. Barenfeld, okay? Our department chair, Ms. Chandroff, and Christina Gagliardi, who was here for the reception, had to leave. But on behalf of Ms. Hardesty and myself, Ms. Barenfeld was hired on October 8th, 2019 in the tenure area of science, specifically chemistry 712 and biology 712. Ms. Barenfeld holds a Bachelor's of Science in Applied Mathematics and a Bachelor of Arts in Chemistry from the University of Rochester. She holds master's degrees from the University of California, Los Angeles in bioengineering and education. Ms. Barenfeld spent 3 years teaching various science classes at Grenada Hills, California, prior to relocating back to New York. While at Hastings High School, Ms. Barenfeld has demonstrated a strong work ethic and is an active participant in curricular initiatives of the science department. In her 4 years, she has taken on many different assignments, including chemistry, living environment. In addition, she created what has become one of the high school's most popular electives in culinary chemistry. 2 years ago, Ms. Barenfeld was asked to start up our Project Lead the Way program, where she participated in extensive professional development and training. This course has gained much momentum and has also become a very popular elective in a very, very short time. Ms. Barenfeld is also participating in various professional learning opportunities, such as the alignment to new New York State science standards in both living environment and chemistry, darkness to light, project-based learning, standards-based grading, and Project Lead the Way. Ms. Barenfeld continues to be a learner and often goes beyond the call of duty in her profession. She also tries to find time to stay engaged with our community, often chaperoning a myriad of productions for us and attending sporting and theatrical events. Over the past 4 years, Ms. Barenfeld has engaged in many activities that go beyond the requirements of her position. showing the true professional that she is. Some examples. She was a judge at the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. She applied to the Hastings Education Foundation and received a $3,000 grant to start our new chemistry science elective. She's a member of the Race Matters Committee. She's the advisor for the Our Neighbors program, which was previously called Crossing Borders, where she formed a partnership with Lincoln High School in Yonkers. She's the advisor of the Cooking Club. She's co-advisor of the National Honor Society, and she's a member of the Portrait of a Hastings Learner Committee. I can say much, much more. It is great pleasure that I present Ms. Barenfeld for tenure.
Thank you so much. This is such an honor. From the moment I walked in these doors and had an interview in the main office, I got to meet Lou and Melissa and Nancy and Michelle, and I got to see both parents and students and community members in this meeting, and that meant the world to me because I knew this school and this district respected the viewpoints and the needs of everyone in the community, and that was tremendous. And I fell in love with the community from that day forward, and I'm not looking back. I've had the pleasure of teaching both Gus and Eliana, and just so many incredible, fascinating, talented, brilliant students here, and that's what brings me joy and brings me purpose every day. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to take a moment and say that tonight is always my favorite board meeting night. It is such a celebration, and when I hear people speak on behalf of the faculty who are recommended for tenure, it's just so inspiring, and I want to say thank you for your many and varied contributions. It's not accidental that each of you embodies the attributes that we're looking for in our Portrait of a Hastings Learner. Strong models moving forward in being bold, collaborative, empathetic, empowered, inquisitive, and inventive. So I've had the opportunity to see you all over the years in different ways, and I just want to say thank you.
I know a lot of you have connections, so I'm going to open up for board comment, student comment. Who wants
to be brief, we don't know any of the Hillside educators, but judging by the high school ones that we do know, on behalf of the student body, if you guys don't lock them in, there's going to be a serious problem.
And I want to say something briefly. I've never had Mr. Day as my teacher, but every time I see Mr. Day, I say hi to him in the hallway, and he smiles at me. He starts a conversation. He's just one of the brightest and positive people I think I've ever met. And honestly, same goes for Ms. B. Whenever I see Ms. B, I light up because she has always been a teacher that you can go to anytime. If you need something, she's the person to talk to. She helps with everything, and I don't know, she's one of the hardest working teachers I've ever seen, who's always there for her students.
I want to echo the positivity that is in the room for our teachers. Being an educator and a teacher, and I still teach, although I hold administrative roles, this is a hard job. I call teachers the second parents of our kids, and I see one parent of my kid sitting right there, and I want to congratulate her for getting her tenure. She deserves it. I thought she was already tenured, but I want to say thank you to all of you. This is a very hard work. I want you to know that the community knows it. We appreciate it. The community that I know, but I think my colleagues will agree with me. And thank you for reaching out to parents of all kinds. It means a lot to us, and we totally support all of you, regardless of whatever you may hear from Slimy Malls. We love our teachers, and thank you.
First, congratulations. And if I'm not mistaken, I think looking back at this, I think everybody started in 2019. Is that correct? I mean, as if like joining Hastings isn't a trial by fire. I mean, during the pandemic, congratulations to you all. You should have gotten tenure probably 3 years ago. So thank you for sticking with us during such a hard time. I'm disappointed that my kids didn't have any of the elementary school teachers because you all sound amazing. And I can't wait for my children to take some chemistry, cooking and chemistry, because they better be taking that home for sure to help me out with that. And the person that I can talk about is Mr. Day, because my kids are very involved in the music program, and I'm so impressed with all of the teachers in the middle school. So Mr. Rubino, Mr. Carini, Mr. Riss, I mean, thank you so much. And to have you join, I just see you guys as such a cohesive unit, and I'm so proud. And the concert last night was incredible, and the concert last week was incredible, and you can just feel the energy of the community. So thank you all so much, and thank you, Mr. Day, for choosing us and for staying here. Appreciate it.
I'll just add congratulations. I also have not had the experience of the the Hillside School teachers, but congratulations to you. And a special nod to Ms. Barenfeld and Mr. Day. My daughter had you both, and I think you're great role models. You do a lot for the school, so we're very lucky to have all of you. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
If I could just say, just to follow on a little bit of what Lou said, one of the things that impressed me as a board member is when you get to see how much input from the school system goes into hiring people and how sort of holistic the tenure process is. And Lou's 100% right. We grant tenure, but what impresses me above everything else is how much all of you do to go get it, and it's across. It's not like a cookie cutter thing. Each of you does their own thing in their own way, and it sort of exercise all these variables that make people effective at being educators and reaching kids. And we're so lucky to have the breadth of people that we do, and thankful that you're all here, and that you really deserve tenure. So thank you so much.
Anyone else?
I just want to point out one thing too, and Melissa, this is also my favorite night of the year, and it's everybody knows that we've had some challenges over the past couple of months in our district, and when you see like the teachers, you realize how much good there is here. That there's much more good than challenges and bad, and it's just such a wonderful feeling. And again, thank you so much. This night really makes you see like how much we really, really appreciate being part of Hastings. Thank you.
So a wise person, as I wrote Friday, told me few words mean the most. So to the 5 of you, Jamie, Amanda, Linda, Eric, and Faye, I need a script. I apologize. Thank you. Thank you. And to your families, thank you. Because I know no matter the arrangements of your family, the size, where they are near or far, if they weren't backing you up, if they weren't your Tenzing Norgays, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. So thank you very much. Thank you. And Lynn Walker, thank you for putting this all together.
Yeah. There we go. All right. Thank you again. We're going to switch it back down to the youngest portion of our oh, no?
You got to vote, man. You got to vote them in.
I'm sorry.
I promised the hay was in the barn, so now you got to vote on the hay in the barn.
Okay.
Correct. Got to lock it in.
Do I have a motion to approve the 5 individuals for tenure?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And now the powers vested in me by the board president. If you all want to go, you can go.
Go enjoy yourself. Thank you. Yeah, of course, of course. It's not fun. It is the best night, like, seriously.
So when are your certificates? Or is it just not done?
They have like any tenure.
I don't think we're done.
Have something to, I don't know. I wonder if they do something like that. All right. I'm sorry you lost your audience. But we're gonna move on to this the student report. Yeah.
All right. No, cheers. Thank you very much. All right, so never mind. First off, the Hastings music concert was last Thursday night, and it was a massive success. There were some amazing performances by the band, orchestra, symphonia, jazz band, chorus, and madrigals. The man responsible for so many of these beautiful pieces got his tenure already. I had him here getting his tenure tonight, but that's Mr. Day. And I know everyone said some amazing things about him up here, but really, like, we lucked out. So big thank you to him and all the music teachers that made this all possible. We've got a really big music program, and it's something both of us have gotten to be a part of for my 4 years, and Aliana's 3, and it's been awesome. So more big news on the performing arts front. The high school's production of Something Rotten was nominated for the 2023 Metropolitan Theater Awards, which is a really big deal. So on Monday, Hastings High School's production of Something Rotten received 5 nominations for these awards, putting it in the running with 55 other schools across Westchester, Bergen County, Rockland, and Putnam counties. The Metro Awards shine a spotlight on exceptional musical theater productions, talented young actors and actresses, and creative teams who take to the stage every spring. Hastings walked away with 5 nominations. The musical number We See the Light was nominated for Outstanding Production Number. Sandra Markley was nominated for Outstanding Performance in a Supporting Male Identifying Role. Emma Gelman was nominated for the Outstanding Achievement in Graphic Design. Vivian Smith was nominated for Outstanding Student Technical Achievement for Costume Design. And Eliana was nominated for Outstanding Comedic Performance by a Female Identifying Performer.
Right on.
All right.
Congratulations.
Pretty awesome. So as I mentioned, and why I'm sort of so all over the place tonight, seniors are officially on their internships. So projects vary from working at the hardware store to going on and documenting long backpacking trips to volunteering with advocacy groups and political organizations. It's an amazing period for seniors to get some real world experience and hopefully to get a little bit of rest before college. For everyone else in the building, it offers a respite from the antics of 140 stir-crazy 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as Gus mentioned, the seniors are out of the building. So everyone else has sort of had to adapt to now the sudden silence in the hallways. And so the junior class representatives actually started a new, hopefully, tradition in the high school that the Monday after the juniors left, there was a surprise for all the juniors with a ice cream sundae truck in the courtyard. Yeah,
Yeah, I heard it was a huge success.
So it kind of was like a little event during lunchtime for all the juniors. There was music and decorations, and everyone was enjoying their ice cream. And it was sort of a way of like welcoming the juniors into their new position as like the eldest in the high school. This past Wednesday was academic field day in the high school, a way for students to have a day to relax from their busy schedules. Each student got to select 3 workshops to attend in the morning out of a very wide selection. And the classes range from workshops on puzzles to workshops on ballroom dancing. And Miss Barenfeld taught a really fun one about learning how to stitch on bananas. Super cool classes. The day gave students opportunity to learn something new and to see their teachers in a new light, teaching something that they're passionate about. And then in the afternoon, all the students watched the movie Free Solo in the auditorium. And it was a super fun day overall, and we're super grateful for everyone involved who put it together. And then I just wanted to give a brief little update on some of the student work being done for Portrait of a Hastings Learner. The Junior Student Union representatives led focus groups, with each grade in the high school, as well as the 7th and 8th graders, as a way to gain input on how to incorporate the Portrait Learner action steps into student life. And so we gained a lot of positive feedback. I know maybe Dr. Szymanski could talk more about it. And some of which included a desire for students to talk more about current events in the classroom and the possibility of incorporating the sort of student-to-student learning we talked about at the last meeting, with having high schoolers enter courageous conversation classes in the middle school to sort of talk about what happens in the high school, the environment, the do's and don'ts, sort of to get the middle schoolers situated and ready for the high school environment.
Excellent. Thank you. When do you find out about the award?
The award ceremony is June 12th.
So they'll let you know ahead of time, obviously, right? Are you go and you,
No,
you go and you open the envelope? Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Where's the award?
Tarrytown Music Hall.
Oh, right on.
Oh, yeah.
It's exciting. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
I would like to take a moment to publicly thank the student union representatives who have been leading those focus groups. It has been really, really insightful. I think the work that you've done has been stellar in making sure that you have a diverse student body across grades 7 through 12, those small group focus groups, really intentional in your process. And it's also been my pleasure to be a part of that with all of you. And I have to say, I was thoroughly blown away by the fact that you collated all of the feedback, came back and had some very clear insights that will guide us in the next phase of the work. So thank you to all of you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to updates and district highlights. These are included as part of the board docs report. Oh, I'm sorry, you're going to pull something out? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So you have material written for you. I'm going to go extemporaneous, though, in a planned way, unless that's an oxymoron. On June 6th, you will have board and thus the community a detailed update on FMS from Jennifer, Camilla, some other district-wide administrators, Janice Mateo Toledo, Tesfa Stewart, will present to you on both near-term and long-term work underway at FMS. I understand a couple meetings ago when I was tending to family, I appreciated your flexibility. In the board comments section, there was a lengthy discussion about FMS. Coming out of that was a request for an agenda item to dig into FMS. It works best to have that focused agenda item on June 6th. And that agenda item will talk about the plan at FMS. We'll talk about the purpose of the plan. It'll give you examples that are underway. It'll talk about communications, particularly examples underway, next steps, and where it is all going. And also it'll give you a chance as a board to engage in some questions tied to a very specific posted agenda item. I think you'll see in that plan, which is largely finished, that it's both immediate and long-term. And the advantage of June 6th is that much of the year will already be done, so you have some chance to reflect with Jennifer and Camilla, Janice and Tesfa, as well as Melissa, on how things are going. I also asked them to go on June 6th because it's important I say a few things as superintendent. And I don't tend to use the personal pronoun a whole lot, but this is a time to use it. I've been meeting with groups of parents today, or we're part of the process. I'll meet again with parents later this week. Met with the FMS team coordinators, team leaders, faculty. Melissa Szymanski is joining me in those conversations. At times, Jennifer and Camilla are. Today was a profound conversation. I promised those parents I would not divulge a whole lot specifically because I'm in a gathering process. And the reason I've done this is I do have a bit of experience in research, 9 years also in 2 major foundations. The task was, here's a major grant request, go out and figure it out, Bill. And you go out by talking to people and listening. You go out by asking simple, open-ended questions, listen to people talk, take pages of notes, go back and distill it and sort it out, but don't share too much too soon because you may start sharing down the wrong path. But let me share a few things right now that I'm already hearing from the faculty in FMS, excuse me, as well as some from the initial parents. And I do listen to students a lot around and about, even before I get formally with some students. First off, we are a healthy district. we are healthy schools. We are not in overall crisis. I've been asked repeatedly to stress the positive. My Friday letters, and I'm not Pollyannish, I'm not simple-minded, I'm going positive every single Friday. If you see the word technical, that's a clue for I may be less than positive, but get into something specific. But even today, I was asked to stay positive, Bill, stay positive. At the same time, it's not a but it's an and. At the same time, I am hearing that we have people hurting. I am hearing that we have people not feeling treated well. The reality is that that is going on all over the place. I spend time with the Tri-State Consortium a fair amount. That's 30, 40 districts from the Tri-State area. I'm also a parent. My wife has asked me not to talk too much about my own children, but I would say they have been going through some of the same things in Greenwich that have been going on here. They had to shut down the cafeteria at Greenwich for a couple days because of fighting. They've had to talk with elementary children about not calling each other garbage and all the rest. And even on a visit to New Canaan, meeting with a wonderful 11th grader, said to me, boy, in 7th grade, us girls, we treated each other really badly. So we are unfortunately in a phase where all around us, people are struggling with how to treat each other. But the important thing is that we not say, oh, okay, fine, that's what it is. We acknowledge that it's happening, and in Hastings, we're going to take it on. We're going to work near-term and long-term to address it. And we're going to work in a way that is not just waiting for the big solution in a year or so, but very immediately, how can we begin to get after some things? And I think you'll hear that on June 6th from Jennifer and Camilla. And Camilla's been playing a very strong role in this, as has Tesfa and Janice, working on this, and Melissa Szymanski providing a framework for that. Let me stress that a couple themes I'm hearing from across the board is from both faculty and parents saying, how do we better connect? How do we better understand each other, and where do you structure that in? Do we think about different times for the parent-teacher conferences? Now, don't go to the bank on that. These are ideas. Remember what I said, if I start down a path too early, I've committed to something we can't do yet. Advisories, can we get to advisories in some way? Structure time within the day for students to exchange and share. If we are thinking about issues of ableism and racism and all the rest, is courageous conversations. How do we strengthen that work such that it's helping? How do we embed the work much more in our curriculum? How do we tie our instructional day much more embedded in embedded ways to this work? Then I think lastly is we will keep listening. I will keep going out to talk to people. I will distill that into things to share with you, but simply put, let me come back to two truths at the top. I am firmly understanding we are a healthy, strong district. If nothing more important, the students tell me that. The students tell me, Dr. McCursey, we are a healthy, strong place, and yes, we can get better. We have to treat each other, and we will, and we have to, in a sense, let that student narrative win here. We can't let the adult narrative take over what is happening and what our students need and want. Last comment is that as I've listened in these sessions, at the end I say, let me do a little process check. How do we move forward from this? And we started something called the Portrait of a Hastings Learner. Last week, Ileana came into my office. She got to me before Melissa did as to what was in the student work. And I will challenge the board now. I will challenge the faculty. I'll challenge parents. If you don't think the portrait can get rigorous, look what our students, our juniors largely, but reaching down to 7th grade, they brought rigor and laid it out in front of me. And I've been in a lot of change efforts. You need energy. To quote a famous basketball coach, Phil Jackson, you want the energy. You're bringing energy into the process, so thank you. So I think a place we're going to go very tangibly is those 18-month action steps that we have to come up with. As it relates to FMS, we need to say, in my mind, let's not go racing out to get someone to come in and tell us what to do, but let's have us in Hastings substantially figure out what to do, tie it to the portrait process, tie it to those action steps, and yes, get some externals to give us some leavening, challenge us a bit. But if we just say, hey, external expert, come give us the wisdom, one, they don't know us, and two, it's a little bit insulting to those here who have a lot of knowledge and wisdom, be they the students, the parents, the families, and especially the faculty. So I know Melissa wanted to do a little bit more dot connecting here as it relates to the portrait, and I think, board, I hope you bear with us. We won't go on much longer, but I think this is the kind of update today tied to this June, I'm going to keep wanting to say January, but June 6th that we thought would be helpful right now. So Melissa, why don't
Excellent.
you?
Thank you.
Sure. I'll be brief, but I do want to highlight that through the listening sessions, it's been a very organic opportunity to find themes that are very related to the 4 action steps. And so I'd like to read those aloud. So the first is to enhance authentic learning opportunities, including interdisciplinary lessons and units. The second is an advisory-like opportunity to support SEL and students' sense of belonging. And we were careful not to just say advisory, because that's a structure, and there are things around that that we have to figure out. So that's the second action step. The third, a community charter around behavioral expectations. And then the fourth is really elevating work district-wide around restorative practices. So Eliana spoke a little bit earlier about the focus groups that members of the student union have been conducting to gain some input around how to best bring those to life for students. Concurrently, all of this has been sitting in what's been going on recently, including the recent events at the middle school, and the focus groups with the coordinators, the team leaders, and with the community members have really been pivotal in helping us think about, now that we're moving into that action step planning process, we're actually taking those action steps and making them into an action plan. That's really bound around, what's the goal, what's the time frame, what are the success metrics, how are we checking up on this? All of that can now be used to inform that next bit of work. So I'm in the process of identifying co-leads for each of these 4 areas, and then we will pinpoint some dates. And then we will reach out to the broader faculty to see who would like to contribute voice and thinking to that. The students who participated in leading the focus groups have very graciously offered to come and speak to the action planning groups to give the actual student voice to the process. So I plan to say yes to that and take you all up on that wonderful offer. But all of this is happening in a fairly organic way, which I really appreciate. I think the feedback that we're receiving is very timely from these focus group discussions and will be used to inform a really robust action planning process.
Thank you.
Melissa, I just didn't get, sorry, I didn't get the first one. I got 2, 3, 4. I didn't
Sure.
get number 1.
The
Can you just
first
repeat
one
it?
is to enhance authentic learning opportunities, including interdisciplinary lessons and units. So how do we make things more interdisciplinary and also purposeful in terms of really authentic and exploring what that means for our learners? And again, students have given a lot of input into what is real life valuable to them.
Great, thank you. That sounds great.
Yeah, I really, just to make a comment, I like how, the concrete these things are and how they're backed up by, real substance of the people that are in these schools. So it always reminds me of that thing I learned in CPR training, where there's an accident, you're supposed to point to someone and say, you call 911, give people a clear directive task that they take ownership of and foster a process that creates ownership, and that's how things get done. And so I'm happy to see it, this kind of turning into, because we went through the whole higher level process, but now it's turning into actionable details, and it's impressive to see. And thank you so much, students, because it makes a huge difference. Thank you. Moving on. I'll count that as the report from our assistant superintendent, right? Okay. So a report from our business official?
No, there's...
Maureen Carvalho?
Yeah.
No, skipping that. Okay. On to public comment. No? Okay. We're going to move into executive session.
Before we move,
Yeah.
I have some comments to make. So, okay. So this is an article that. So I'll start off by saying that, as all of you know, I like to bring to the surface the silent voices, which at this point I'm part of. After last meeting, when both of our colleagues here presented, and thank you for doing that, community members reached out to me wondering, what is the board doing? And when it comes to issues with race and our IEP students, because this particular incident that, again, is not unique to Hastings, but after all, we have to focus on our district. I am a parent with a person with disability, or I would rather use the word delayed developmental challenges or alternate developmental growth. And I'm also a person of color. If I would talk about it technically, I am black. And I have to use the word black, which I don't like using, only because using the word black exposes white hegemony, which I don't even know why we have white on our demographic when it's not an ethnicity. So that's a different story for another day. But to conceptualize all of this that is happening, this is research that was done. I will share the public article if anybody wants it. But it says here that in schools committed to racial equity, which I believe Hastings is part of, educators who resist anti-racist measures should rather feel uneasy or isolated and the like. And this person is saying that literally, that's what you would think. The educators least invested in this should wonder where they rather belong when it looks like it's a community voice of action. Instead, and this is research, sadly, research shows the inverse tends to be true in many schools. Even when leaders claim equity commitment, often the educators most adamant about racial equity are cast to the margins of institutional culture. They are the ones feeling isolated, wondering whether they belong. And we have those authors there. Colleagues call them troublemakers for naming what others refuse to do. So I'm going to start off by sharing something that...
Damaris, can I just say one thing? If it's a long thing...
it's important.
I agree, but if it's because we have executive stuff that we have to vote on
Listen,
tonight.
I know the laws. We are here to deliberate, not move along agenda. And this is important.
That's fine.
I have it written and I need to finish it.
Just to note.
I have a right to finish it. This is not a yay, move along.
Hold on. Just to note, we have board comments.
I don't have to isolate my comments to board comments. I know the law. So I want to say it and finish. And as you know, and again, all the board people that were voting, all of them were saying transparent, transparent, transparent. Moving forward, I'm going to educate the public how the board, people don't know that. They think that we have the same structure as the board of trustees in the community. It's not. This is the meeting where we are supposed to work. We are not supposed to have sidebars. We are not supposed to discuss anything. We are not supposed to do homework and come prepared. We are here to do the work. That is what board meetings means. So sometimes people are looking at me like, you're sitting here, and where is the work? This is the work. So I am working. So let me finish my statements. Thank you. So cancer, if you look at the whole population of the world, and I'm saying this from my medical background. My brother is a radiation oncologist from Mount Sinai. He had his 2 doctorates there, so I know exactly what I'm saying. Cancer is killing people. When you talk about statistics, and you say that these are isolated deaths, because majority of people are not being affected by cancer, it's hurtful. I lost my nephew, 4 years old. My brother has 2 doctorates in cancer. He lost his son to cancer. You cannot look at me and tell me that it's the statistics. The majority are not getting cancer. Because when you are looking at the marginalized group of people that get cancer, to them it's 100% life or death. So that is how some of these things are. So I get the positivity. I get it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be positive. But in the attempt to be positive, we cannot diminish the impact of some of these things that are happening only to create some kind of cover-up. I was appalled by the fact that we are spotlighting our kids as if they are the villains. My colleagues said the same thing. I've spoken to other board members that are like, why are we making the issue our kids? It's not our kids. It's not our kids. Kids are kids. How come we are making everything as if the kids are the people and then we are trying to shine the lights on them? Now I'm going to read. It saddens my heart to say that the past incidents, which in my opinion is a tip of the iceberg of many such incidences, past and present, against persons of color and trickling into individuals that have delayed developmental growth, we are spotlighting our kids as villains. That is not good. A lot of us have heard it being echoed by a board member, and I heard it in the community, and I want to lift it up to the surface. It's not our kids. It's not our kids who are the evildoers. So what are we as adults doing to fix that? That is where we should spotlight. We must remember that our kids have been thrown into a world plagued with these atrocities, which are no fault of theirs, which are no fault of any of us, even as adults sitting here, because we did not initiate any of these. However, as adults, we play a key part in enforcing such actions if we continue in negligence or promote empty words of nothingness in our practices that does not lend to actionable outcomes. It is the responsibility of us adults as proprietors of our kids, be it in the seats of governance like we all are here right now, or as administrators, or as educators, or as parents, to put our working boots on and tear down inequities, even within inequities themselves, and collectively dig up in the trenches, the pipelines that are fueling discriminatory practices, instead of covering them up, bridling tongues and pretending everything is okay. I want to once again bring this to the surface, the silent cries of marginalized voices. In the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the challenges faced by different groups can be likened to a group of starving children. While efforts are being made to nourish these children, which is still woefully inadequate, most often than not, one child in particularly, just my colleague here spoke about race, I just want to highlight race today. One particular child representing the issue of race seems to receive the least substantial care relatively. This child is often tokenized through superficial mannequin-like showcases rather than receiving the nourishing meals of actionable inclusivity, such as pedagogy, curriculum, opportunities, recognition, sense of belonging. The list can go on and on and on, and I'll spend this whole night talking about it. What I have often seen, and this is not unique to Hastings, it is so true, it is not. This is not unique to Hastings, but in general, when horrifying incidents related to race occur, the initial response is empathy. Let's move the temperature from red empathy to the green empathy so that everybody feels okay. So we emphasize on that empathy thermometer thing, and then soon after that, and watch my words, soon after that, an active process to find ways to hush the cries of the raised child by force feeding them with pacifying objectives of empty words about things like whatever it is that we say. And then it leads to nothingness. What happened to the George Floyd thing? We all marched. We all heard the huge speeches. We were all in this town. I've been here over 10 years. We all heard it. We all heard it in Draper Park. with the hopes that eventually, we hush it, with the hopes that eventually public spirit will die, public silence will once again prevail, and the incidents will be forgotten. However, when the pain is so profound, which some of us are feeling in our knickers, that the raised child continues to cry out in agony, the response then shifts to finding ways to deafen the ears of the crying child. Let's dismantle this. Let's plug this hole. Let's close our ears. This is not the Hastings that I fell in love with and moved into this district. And if saying this means that I'll be hated, so be it. I'll move with my family, because it's getting too much now. I implore all those who are part of our community, who have joined Hastings on Hudson Public School. It's a public school that is supposed to serve our community, all of our children. Please uphold the caring for every child adequately. I feel so joyful when I'm in the community. I promise you, if it wasn't for what I know now, I would never have even thought these things. I used to hear the PTSA talk about it before I even knew anything. And I'm like, yeah. And I promise you, none of the teachers, I love all of them. I've not seen any of them doing anything that shows anything otherwise. So I meant exactly what I said. None of the teachers, I've never experienced even till date. But how can we be proprietors of doing things that is actionable is all I'm asking. Is all I'm asking. We cannot hide the starving child. Let's put the starving child here, and let's all see and find ways to help. Please, I'm begging all of us. Yes, it's a positive community, but there are marginalized groups dying, just like cancer people are dying, and we can't just say it's not the majority, so let's cover it. Thank you.
Okay. On that note, we're going to move into the executive session. What's the notice? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion? Thank you. I'm sorry?
Yeah, sorry. I should have waited.
There's a second. There will be a second one later on. How are we noticing it? The executive session for the purposes of personnel?
It says legal litigation.
Okay. So, is there a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of pending litigation and to discuss personnel?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. So we're going to move downstairs to the library room.
Is it just safe to stay? We have to leave the local line on. We can't. So it just stays like dark.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have sort of a mini agenda you mentioned for the?
Just the items listed, so
Okay, you know I'm going.
Yeah, no, I know you.
Yeah.
Stuff, you can keep
Okay.
To your son is this, and you're not doing it. They don't understand how the board works.
These sorts of unnecessary stories and things that started in Hastings and things that are happening now that it breaks my heart and I feel it in my stomach because it's so bad. And I, as a parent, feel like
they should take the spotlight from the kids. The kids are not evil. Our kids are playing in the backyards. Behind parties. They are not evil. Right. If you are in charge of kids, kids will always be kids. Kids will say bad things. Why are they making it about the kids? You get what I'm trying to say? It's not the kids. They are shaming these kids.
Right.
What are you doing as an adult in organizing what is happening? And then you're making it all about the kids and behavior management. Come on. These kids are in our neighborhoods playing in the backyard. Sorry, the mic is still. I'm going to executive session. But it is America. I'm not trying to make it a Hastings thing. Right. But let's just get serious. And I mean, watch this. It's going to blow. It's going to, people forget another incident will happen. Woo!
Right.
And then they forget again, and it will happen again. And there are committed people in this town who wants to support this work. So let's just do it. We are not blaming anybody. Nobody initiated any of this.
You should talk to Bill about it because the parent meeting he referenced.
We can't talk outside. People don't understand. Here is where we talk. I can't talk. People don't even understand how the board works. So they think that, oh, why you not doing your homework? Executive session is executive because you're going to talk about an individual. That's it. Open meeting laws requires that everything is public. And everybody running is like transparent. I run things transparent. But the public doesn't know how it works. So they are wondering, why are we not doing our homework? You can't. This is where we talk. We don't just yay.
I'm back. Can we just put everything outside until tomorrow?
You have one more bar? I'm looking for bars.
I got it.
You know they said it's not even good.
No, like candy
Bars. Yeah, the bars.
for adults.
But they're convenient.
They are convenient.
Alex said, I'm sorry, I just was very emotional, but I was telling people that thought I'm not doing anything about something that is close to home, and I'm like, because of food, we are making it about the kids.
No, we all talked about that.
Yeah.
It's not, you know.
So I just want, it shouldn't be about the kids in terms of making them the bad people. And I know Doreen has said it 1,000 times, but it wasn't put in the context that was registered.
Yeah.
And so when it felt like, oh, you're not doing it, I'm like, no, I am just like everybody else. But if we are making it about the kids,
Might have to do this more often. Do business, public comment number one, business items. I take it back. There's one
So
person
much.
who did not appreciate that we did it this way.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Totally. The mics are hot. The mics are hot.
Who says?
Say that again.
The mic?
Oh, your mic's on?
Yeah, but the camera, the video's not rolling.
They are not on, right?
We haven't,
Oh, they are on?
I don't know. He told me that the mics were on.
well, we're broadcasting the live meeting.
No, because I realized that because what I was going to say. Just
I don't know, did he collect all these?
They said you can keep it, just keep it
Because
personal.
it's not a big deal.
Hey, this is a rock and the mics are on.
Oh, could be in anyone's phone.
Who did? Oh, you should see it.
I didn't know if he wanted to collect. No, nothing was
He's in Connecticut right now.
What is your
He's
son?
allowed to. No, he said we could keep it.
Yeah, he said just keep it to yourself.
Holy beef. That's crazy. I was like, yeah, that's what is it carrying? No, he's just one of the schools keeps his personal life. Oh, yeah, that's what I was
Told
going
you
to say.
didn't collect these, we'll just keep it private.
We
Thank
didn't
you.
do that for the first year. Yeah, no, that was in St.
He's brought it to school like twice.
Last night. Yeah.
You're smart, you grabbed some.
Yeah, that's a good one. Simple.
Where did all those snacks go?
I don't know.
We used to do it like.
Oh, yeah?
And so that one of us would walk that to school so that
Good for Doug.
the cello and then didn't have his backpack or vice versa. Like you're gonna have.
No, we have quorum, I guess we can just go. We're good, we're live, right?
Our kids are gonna end up being really short on sugar.
Okay, mics are live.
He's going to bed.
Okay, I guess we could just go into this. Are there any questions or comments regarding business items number 1 through 23?
I have one. Can I just open it?
Oh, you need
My
the mic.
question was actually about, I think it's number 2, it's the one about the sidewalks being done.
Yes.
When is that going to happen, Maureen?
Now.
Oh, it's happening
Yeah.
now? Awesome, because I know I've almost tripped on that
We
many
actually,
times, so-
yeah, one, I think I explained, it sort of was kind of becoming a problem when somebody points it out to, and we've already had people, fall, and like it's our now a liability.
So what's the anticipated finish
Like,
date?
I would say in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Oh, good, terrific. I think I had some other stuff. Do you have anything? I did, but I can't remember what they are, so go ahead.
What's number 9 all about?
That each year, we have to, any of our athletic teams that are merged, and this is every year, it's something we have to file with Section 1 to show our anticipated potential mergers with schools and why we're doing so. And it's, as you can see, things such as swimming and ice hockey and wrestling and football. Typically, the first 4 are always merger sports for us because we don't have facilities for swimming, and then the others are just based on numbers and also facilities, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding business items? Sorry, I'm eating popcorn. Regarding business items 1 through 23.
I had a question on page 33 of the warrants. Hillside Learning Center, there was...
What number is that one? Sorry.
Geez, I don't know.
Tax warrant?
So I guess, let me finish the
Check
question and I'll
warrants.
go back. But it was Hillside
For-
Learning. I just wanted to know, was
Sure.
there a completion of a project? It was for floors and...
Yes, so which page was it of the warrant?
It was
please?
33, it looks like.
Page 33? Okay. Yeah, so it is
Flooring and
completed,
lighting.
but was it on 33? It must have been earlier. Oh, Everson Best, Hillside Learning Center flooring, lighting. Yes, that's completed. That was part of the capital project there.
Okay, so it's just
Yeah.
a follow
Yeah, it's
on.
just sometimes like the things, if they're not signed off or not everything is, completed, it's just, yes, it's the final payment.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding business items 1 through 23? No? Is there a motion to approve business items 1 through 23?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Moving on to placement services for CSE and CPSE. Are there any questions or comments regarding our placement and services for CSE and CPSE? Is there a motion to approve our placement and services for CSE and CPSE?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I forgot.
Moving on to personnel as a consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments regarding our appointments, resignations, amendments, or leaves of absence?
I have a question. If this is not an appropriate question for this forum, please let me know. I don't know what we're allowed to ask or not. But it would seem that a person who's asking for a leave of absence is the same person who's resigning.
It's
So
just the dates.
Different
If you look at the dates, Doreen, there's one.
I understand.
Yes.
So the person is not working from April to June,
Mhm.
and then when their children are in, but then we'll start getting paid again in July?
No,
until
it's
August?
just the date of it. It has things to do with just
Okay, so they'll just be paid until the
June
end of the
30th.
school year when they're
Correct.
not here,
Yep.
and then they
Mhm.
will leave.
Yep.
Excellent.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I might just note for the board that certainly candidate 1 here, candidate 2 are in areas very difficult to fill. The special ed area now has become incredibly challenging, and we actually are quite encouraged by who we've landed here. It required some flexibility on all the way through the team, but we think we've landed a very strong candidate. And then finding physics teachers is exceedingly difficult, and we're very excited about the individual here. I'm just staying neutral on anybody else. I just wanted to flag those as 2 very difficult to hire areas. And actually, the 3rd person you see here also another special ed area.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Is there a motion to approve our appointments, resignations, amendments, and leaves of absence?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to minutes. Are there any questions or comments about our minutes from our May 2nd meeting? Is there a motion to approve our minutes from the May 2nd?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. New business, so we're not voting on this, but this is letting us know that the international travel has resumed. I read through it. So it's Mr. Lopez has set up or restarted the trip and planned a specific agenda for the children to visit Merida, Mexico, I guess, on the Yucatan Peninsula.
That's right.
Are there any questions or comments about the trip?
I just have a question or comment. I think it's terrific that this is happening again. Thank
parents
God.
go?
I went on a trip when I was in high school. It was very exciting. And is this just open? Is it open to everybody, or is it open to like only seniors? How does that work?
So I'm just trying
Like,
to
do you have
look
to have a
back.
certain-
I'm pretty
you have to
sure
have a
it's the
certain
students
understanding of
within
Spanish or
his
something?
Spanish program. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually, so there are different types of trips that school districts take students on. Some are experiential. This is educational, so it's specifically immersing students in an educational experience. So not just the sightseeing part. So yeah, it is specific to his students and faculty. And I
don't
will
think it's
double
grade
check that.
specific.
He didn't specify
No, it's
which
not.
class.
I don't think it's grade specific, but they do need to be strong in Spanish.
Right, you have a certain proficiency.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
I
a better way
can
to
double
put
check
it.
the whom.
Yeah, and then we have a policy about, I guess, foreign travel. So you have to be in academic good standing and code of conduct good standing, that sort of stuff. So it's in the memo. He you guys have enumerated it pretty.
And the
pretty well.
policy is such that we bring it to you as an FYI for discussion and awareness, but not a vote. That's the policy that you'd approve for this.
I remember.
Yes, you worked it over.
Right.
Recently.
I'm glad they're taking
Yeah.
advantage of it. Great.
Yeah, no, it was actually, to Mr. Lopez's credit, it's a good example of very innovative, forward-looking teacher. He was the one who called the question on, are our policies up to speed yet? That's why the board went through that policy process, so we'd be ready then for his submission. So while you're just seeing this now, it's probably almost a year ago that he said, gosh, are we going to be reopened for business, if you will, for trips?
Awesome.
Oh yeah, there was. I remember that actually.
And then final comment, there are a few very important protections in this policy because that commitment or clarity on who's responsible if the trip's canceled financially.
I remember
And the
that.
families really need to focus on that so that the district then is not responsible.
Correct.
Because unfortunately, several districts, and maybe Hastings, I certainly wasn't here, but several other districts have been caught in that unfortunate moment when a trip gets canceled and then families are not happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to speak a little bit to the policy. I'm part of the policy committee, so.
Wait, are we
Can
allowed
I-
to move on yet?
One
Oh,
second.
sorry.
Just want to make
We
sure.
are still on the policy or no?
Hold on, let me just see where
Yeah,
we're.
we're on number 9A.
Committee reports.
I think we were on the policy.
Well,
Not yet, we were still 9A.
Oh, we're on 9A?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so I'll
just-
wait till we get to the policy. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Are there any other questions or comments? And we're not voting on it, but just,
I
now's the
thought
time
we
to
are
ask
not
it.
voting, right? Okay.
No, it's just a new
Okay,
business
sorry,
item.
Sorry.
So we're moving on to 10A, which is the policy committee report. Quick thing, just to point out, let's do the report, but if we're in agreement, these policies are pretty important, and it's past 10, so we could table this until the next meeting on June 6th, if everybody's in agreement. But let's have the committee report first.
I mean, Maureen, you want to report on it?
Sure. So for 5710, I think the main thing was just the optional language, that we didn't want to kind of lock in and say we will do something. So we kind of left it a little bit more open with the may. And we felt because it says may, we didn't necessarily have to define how we might use it, how we might assess, because when you say assess, you kind of want to know what are we judging, what's the rubric to judge, is it good, is it bad, is it in the middle? So that was the main discussion, and I think we just landed on the simpler change being, we have the right to use it, and it's implied that we would work with the administration for any, if we did want to dig deeper into the data.
Yep. Can I just add something to that too? Sorry, Maureen.
Sure.
Please. I think that the idea was that does this what you said? I'm sorry. Does a board actually do this, or is it the superintendent and admin's job? Like, should we be saying the board has a right to do this, whether you agree or not? I'm just saying, but that's what the discussion was really about. Like, is it the admin's job, and then the board gives the super and tells the super, please dig into this, or does the board actually dig into this? And that's why we switched it to may instead of will, because for those reasons. Sorry, I just wanted to.
I wanted to speak to that as well, because I know it was one of our discussions. And I say this because I know new board members are coming. Of course, we have a veteran one coming, so they know the laws in place. But sometimes the community is not aware of the process. So we set policies for the input aspects of the operational work that needs to get done. And these policies may have language which the community is aware of. These policies, they know we have to set those policies. It's in our right to do it, to drive the work here. But once these policies are set, which have the specificity of the words in it, that the board does this, does that, the operational wind of bringing it into that action is not something that we deliberately meddle with, but we give I call it the theory of change drive. It said that operation accountability. Now, when we see the operation part is not fulfilling the outcome that we want to see as a community, then the accountability part has to be looked into to enforce that operational piece. So that's why the language of the policy may seem operational, but it's intentional. So one of the things that we felt we should do was to put that may there, so that when they say data, we can say, okay, although it's our responsibility to, as you all know, the calendar is one example. It says clearly the board will adopt the calendar, but we all were here when we realized that there's an operational committee making that decision before it comes to us, for us to see whether this is really what we want and include and give our suggestion in order to enforce the outcome we are looking for. And so it's this revolving work of operational accountability. So sometimes the passion behind it may be seen as button heads, but usually it's more of that deliberative work that we are putting out there for everyone to see. And I know this community, we have a lot of educators here, chancellors, name it. You all know how this works. So I'm just hoping that we would have this going. And in particularly, so the part that I wanted to connect to this is that we talked about having a metric system. Maureen actually brought that up in order to be able to determine what is what, because I know a lot of people in the community are also talking about the on-level imbalances with things here and there with the punitive measures that are in place. I want to say that I think the concentration is being placed on kids, and I know I said it passionately in the earlier page. I'm not saying that kids should not follow the necessary discipline. We all know discipline is important. But what I'm saying is that that discipline should be restorative in nature. And there should be a clear-cut metric system, which we did talk about, that we are hoping that level or categories be put in place, transparent. And luckily I saw something similar I stumbled on it, the code of conduct that Yonkers has. It has the inappropriate behaviors, a whole lot of them listed in these different parts, level 1, level 2, level 3 level 4, may contact please, may mass contact please, the number of incidents is all color coded clear to the community so that, and publicly, so that nobody feels that their kids are not being treated fairly, because it's right there. So I hope that this is the suggestion I want to place here, and strongly suggest that it becomes one of the work that we carry forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add that would be that discussion about the rubric and maybe, modeling what Yonkers, that would come under the code of conduct, so kind of in that piece of it is where it would fit, right? So
This
more
is
to
their
come on
code
that.
of conduct, yep.
Okay.
But that, and I hear you, but I just want to be clarified, that's not what the optional one is about, whether we create a rubric or not, it's whether the board has the ability to use it.
Yeah, that's a different
Just to
thing,
be
right, to
Correct,
assess the safety.
correct. Gotcha. So we're kind of blending the committee report with getting into discussing the policies. Just noting that these are important policies, and it's 10:15. If it's okay with people to table this so we have more time for it.
Oh, no, I'm
The
done.
next.
I'm done with it.
But can we agree to
Oh,
table?
it's a first read.
It's a first.
You don't need to table it, it's going to come up again.
No, but I'm saying to even the first reading part.
Because if
you
you
know.
want to take that out, if you're like, say you're like, I don't agree with that at all, I don't want that in.
I don't think
then
we
have
need to
go
table
back.
it. Why
The
the
board
push for the
trusts the
tabling?
people on the committee.
Because otherwise
they
we have to
can read
discuss it right
and
now.
move on.
Just,
I mean,
to be
anyone has
clear-
any additional
Yeah.
discussion, or we can just leave it as is?
Right.
It's a first read. Do we, I'm done.
I just want to say thank you.
No, my point is that we don't want to
Wait.
complete this step, hold on a second. We don't want to have a perfunctory completion of the first read so that when it comes back up, it's as a second read. What I'm saying is.
We pull it out now? I don't think so.
And do a first read
No.
on June 6th.
I don't agree to that, no.
Well, then we have to discuss it right now, is
Okay.
the point.
Right,
The
and
point- so let's
but
do-
Jeremy's point, sorry.
No, I think we should do a poll to see if we will table this until June
We don't need
June
to
6th.
table it. No, if it's some, I mean, we should ask I feel the fair, equitable process is, does anybody else have anything to say about this? If
Yeah.
nobody has, or if
Yeah,
more than one
I
person
think these
has,
merited
but you
it.
are trying to pull, you want to table something that is first read, to give it, I mean, okay, you could do that, but I know what to say later, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying, given the time that it's 10:15, these are the policies that, these are, I understand the committee has read through them and looked through them, but the other 4 of us have, 4, right?
Well,
Have not.
it's the role of the
Done that
board,
with
it's the role of a board
every
member to
policy,
read
because
the
we're trying to
meeting
get rid
before
of
you come
whatever.
to the meeting.
Okay, you go
And to
ahead.
have any questions prepared. So if nobody has any questions prepared, we've done the first read.
But I think it's, but the point for me, Jeremy, is that the 2 of the 3, one is very straightforward. 2 of the 3 are not straightforward, and we were discussing them, the 3 of us were
I see
discussing
optional
them
stuff that-
and going like back and forth about
And you
what
want
something should be,
input.
what shouldn't be. And finally, I was like, we're not getting anywhere. We can't make a decision.
Okay.
Let's see what the board thinks. So that's why we need to have a discussion about it. And just, maybe we don't have to have a discussion, but that's why we want to pull out the points to you guys that we found confusing or we weren't sure. And maybe you'd be like, yeah, of course, just keep it in, and everybody says that, and then we move on. But, we're just pointing out the parts of it that we were like, I don't really know 100% about that.
Understood.
I don't know one policy that we discussed that we've not gone back and forth. I personally feel like there was a particular policy that we thought we didn't need, which for me, it sent the wrong signals all over me. So
Oh.
if you want to pull it out,
No, I don't want to pull anything out. I just want to say, what's basically being said is that in a policy committee meeting, there was back and forth, and without lacking a part of the resolution of that back and forth was to say, we don't have unanimity within the committee, but we have unanimity to say, let's have the whole board consider
but
this.
we weren't in that policy meeting. It's the 3 of us.
I understand that.
So if you want to, if you
Right.
ask one, and again, you can't use your level as a president to decide that, because it's not the way it works. But if you feel you've not had sufficient time to go through it, and you want to pull it out and table it so that it's not a first read, then let's see.
No, so we'll stay at first read, I'm saying, for the next time. Yes, so that's not my decision. I'm saying that that's what we should decide here, given the time that it's 10:15 at night. So is there a desire to
Yes, to we
Just
table it for the
5710
second
or all
read,
of them?
I don't know what this, it's not a big deal. Like, I'm not.
They're all kind of related.
I'm just saying we should give this the space it needs, which is not to my.
The second read, we've done that with all policies. Why are we?
And on second read, if it doesn't seem popular, you just don't approve it, and then it restarts again.
Well, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. I think the more proper view of this
Let's
is
go
that
with 6.
Okay, well, I think it's mine. I'm just saying, in lieu of a big discussion now, let's bring this up as it could have come up on June 6th.
You're talking more than even the discussion itself, trying to get us to pull it.
Well,
pull it
I'm
from
discussing
we all do
it with
this
you,
work.
right?
I feel like the three of us in the policy meeting, I feel, and we all do this work in our own spaces. This is policies always go through rigmaroles. That's why they put the readings in place. It's a first read. If you think there's something that people should focus on, tell the board that I think there's something you should laser focus on, come back ready for the second read. Somehow you want to pull it and table it so that it comes back again as a first read. Why?
The first read and the second read is really more for the public than the board.
Exactly.
It's so that it's posted here so people can read it, so that if they have a comment, they can read it and they can know to show up like the next time and have another comment. I mean, it could be for the board too, but it's primarily for the public. And, Jeremy's right. I mean, we could just say, we don't want to vote on it next time if there really is. So it is somewhat semantics. I think the reason why you might want to call it a second read the next time is because we're able to vote on it then. If you leave it as a first read, we can't vote on it next time. So,
So I think that the main question is that whether it's a first read or second read, there's in 2 of the policies, there's controversial statements. The question is, do we want to have the conversation about what the controversial statements are tonight, which will take time, and we'd have to have a discussion?
Well,
or
let's do it.
Do we want to table
I want to do it
next time
tonight.
so we don't have the conversation tonight? I think that's, whether it's first read, second read, whatever it is, the question is, do we want to have the conversation about them tonight, or it's...
I'm with Damaris. We just took 5 minutes about saying nothing. Let's hear what the controversy is right now. I'd like to hear.
Let's hear it.
And if there's if
see
only
any
one person
controversy.
speaks and the other 6 stay silent, we can move on. So in
No,
5710,
hold on. I just don't think that's if you want to keep it if you want to move it to a second read, I just don't think it's productive to have this conversation tonight at 10:20. I just don't. So if
You
we want
sign up to be on the
Okay,
board.
well, you're
And
just
we
one
have to
voice,
work
and let's get going. I mean, let's have
So
this.
you
Let's
cannot
move on.
use time to
You don't
slow
get to
things
pull
down.
it.
If
Let's
you knew
just
that
talk
shouldn't-
and move
You're not
on.
even supposed to have an agenda.
Yeah.
If you knew that you shouldn't have signed up being on the board.
That's
The board is, we are here to work.
That's kind of a rude comment, I have to say.
No, I'm not being rude.
No,
I'm
but it is
just
kind of a rude
perplexed
comment.
with all these.
I'm trying to be.
Listen, I know
I'm
how
trying to
this
be respectful.
works.
I'm trying to be respectful of our time and of the administrator's
By
times.
pulling something and tabling it again, and there's show me the
That's
controversy.
it's about time management in
I know
respect
what
to this
this
policy.
is, and I can say it. I have no qualm saying it, if you want me to.
Could,
I think he's just trying to point out for the admin that he wants the admin to be able to go home because it's late for them. I don't want to put
So
words in your mouth.
what I would suggest then, if you want to split the difference, we would move it to a second read where we can vote on it at the June 6th meeting, but then we spend time talking about it then. That's what I would suggest doing.
Okay.
And on the same topic, I think, for next year, you guys should really consider making your meetings start at 6 o'clock. Just start it at 6. Let's get administrators home.
Well,
The PTSA can adjust their meetings, If 10 o'clock is too late for, the workday, it's like, let's respect people's time, but let's move things forward if you want to consider that in the future, too.
Sure, no, that's a good point. All right, so we'll move on with that. So to agenda review, where are we with that?
Wait, so we're not talking...
Does anybody have any comments about policy 5710? Or anybody want to share anything with the board that we should be talking about on 5710?
Just what I had already stated about the optional, do we want to say that the board has the right to have this data, or do we want to say that the board directs the superintendent to do X, Y, and Z?
The lawyers read the policies before they come. I think we should all review the laws of being a board member, because the lawyers did not make a mistake stating it. It's our choice to make it optional or not. But considering the incidences that are happening, there are certain things that cannot be optional because accountability is needed really keenly at this time. And so Maureen very nicely said that, so that board members know the difference between meddling and not meddling, we should put may there. When we even go to executive session, data can be anecdotal. We review data all the time. Data is not you researching and meddling. And the lawyers see every policy that comes to the table. They know what they are doing when they let us. So it's not as for us to interpret it as if it's a wrong thing. It's not wrong. If it's wrong, they would have stated that this statement is wrong. They looked at it before they sent it to us. All they are saying is it's optional whether we should put it there or not. And we need accountability in our district. That's all I'm saying.
And I think you can make the case that it's oversight. I mean, it's written, so it's not written as a requirement, right? It's may, and it's the oversight of the climate of the school. So that's, that's a judgment thing and it's an oversight thing. It's not saying, I think it really kind of is written in a way that allows us flexibility as an oversight body without having to prescribe, we're going to work with this person or that person and define it so much. So, I mean, I'm good with it as written, I'll put it that way.
I'm okay with May.
I'm okay with it.
Anything else? That's it? Okay, moving on to agenda review.
No, I want.
Does anybody have any comments about policy 115?
I do.
I'd be interested in hearing them.
Okay. I just want to point out the optional on 0115 is that after, when you go down to the section that's in green on the first page, so after Dignity Act coordinators, it doesn't say optional here, but it is an optional paragraph about creating a committee to focus on the prevention of bullying and harassment. So originally written, was written that there was a committee for each school, because these policies are written in general for every school district. That didn't make sense in our school district to have one for every school. Like if you have a school district with 10 elementary schools, maybe that makes sense. But in our district, it doesn't make sense. So we talked about moving it down to one. But there's a feeling about, do we really want a committee to make these decisions, or do we want to, rely on the experts in prevention of bullying and harassing, which is our staff and our our admin and our teachers, and who they decide and how they work. So this is something that I want to pull out as having a comment on. I don't know if Dr. McCursey wants to talk about either one of those and his impressions of those, but that was the other one that's very important to note.
Yeah, that's correct. There's the district level committee and then the different schools. We felt like if we do district only instead of the other schools, then we are going to limit that mandate of all schools having it when one district can serve it. Now, to the point, the part that I'm in disagreement with my colleague here, who I usually agree with, is that I understand in recent times, which I am actually going to school for right now, we are learning about how to handle discriminatory practices, all this DEI related stuff. We are being schooled on it. But I can boldly say that none of us really were taught, as Gus clearly said it, in our schools to learn how to. So there are no really, we all have to have a growth mindset, because there's no a real expert, right? Because sometimes we all get the blind stuff. I've discriminated against a black person myself directly. So what I would say is that we have to understand that the lived experiences of those that are going through these things in itself is a form of education. Because if you look at qualitative research, anecdotal data is what is transferred into the literal article. And so we can, for me, having a district-wide committee that has all the inputs of the voice, because all the input, not just of educators here, but of people that are in that process, shapes. If we have a growth mindset, we are not going to be defensive about inputs that come in. We are going to use it to shape process. We just have to have a framework that people feel the trust can exist. And that's all I will keep pushing. When you have a framework, the community calls it transparency. That's what they call it. Because there is a structure in place that allows for processes and protocols to be followed. And so I don't think that we can just throw this as just an expert of people that are standing in the mud, trying to clean up the mud. They will get muddy themselves. And when they get muddy, then they try to exit because they made a mistake, you know? And some are obstinate about that. They still stay put and continue to feel they are the expert and harm others. So we just have to really remember that we all have to work this thing together.
What are you referring to in the policies?
This one that
it's in the green section.
In the green section.
In addition, that one?
011, yeah.
115.
And Mike can.
But
they
your
wanted-
comment about having this transparent framework, how does that relate to this?
Because that includes, okay, so what Doreen was saying was that if we don't have a committee at all, because the committee includes parents' voices, it has to include administrators, teachers, parents, students, everybody. But if we don't have that committee at all, then we are just saying that the school should just handle it. But this requires
If
a
I may
district
clarify
committee.
operationally, this is not going to be an operational committee. This is an advisory committee.
Correct.
It's not operational at
Correct.
all. And there's
It's
a
not
whole set of
operational.
particular details this committee will not be able to get into
Correct.
due to federal and state laws.
FEPA, correct.
So I think the reality is, this was modified, I think, in a helpful direction in the policy committee. I am still concerned in the amount of time that will go into an advisory body, distracting us from the core work of actually doing this. Because this group would be advisory, but purely that. And
Yeah.
because of the inclusion of students and parents, which there are other ways to get that input, it cannot be operational because of
Of
the
course.
privacy of a lot of things.
Correct.
We've already committed in July, you will start hearing on an annual basis, we're going to propose semi-annual, the kind of data you've talked about in Yonkers. We're already working on that. And that was something we talked about in the policy committee. We talked about in a separate meeting with you earlier. So the kind of transparency around data, we're already there. My main concern with this is you really only have 3 administrators are sitting right here who can deal with this. And I think if the board feels we should give this a go, I would say give it a go for a year and then evaluate. I am concerned about, what the value add is at the purely advisory level.
But it says here, Bill, doesn't it say here that there's already a committee, right? Because it says, in addition, superintendent will identify a committee to focus on prevention of bullying and harassment. Committee will include DAC, representative from staff, administrators, students, and parents. The committee will
doesn't
assist
exist.
administrators in developing specific prevention. So what's already written here already exists as an advisory committee, right?
No, not.
No,
This is
It's all optional.
Not in policy.
This would be established as new. And so I think
Wait, why am I looking at this text in black then? What was that? What is
It
that?
doesn't say optional the way the other one does,
No, it
but
was-
this is an optional text.
It exists.
The whole paragraph.
Yeah,
But I
which,
don't get it.
the cross-out, I'm not sure which part, when you say black, the cross-out?
He's meaning the markup is
The
usually.
markup, the way this is written, it's showing that the committee already exists in the current policy. Is that not the case?
No.
No.
It
Why is
technically,
this
I'll tell
marked
you.
up this way?
Because this was NISBA or sample policy, which is what it's in black, and the addition of what they talked about is the markup to that.
So
It
this whole
exists.
policy doesn't exist at all?
Correct.
Got it.
I believe it exists, it's just that we are not doing it operationally.
No, he means physically does the committee already exist.
So there is no 0115 in our policy?
That's what I'm saying.
It says formally 7550.
Right,
Okay, but
there was.
Let's hear
What I'm
Tom.
saying, 7550 exists different than this policy?
Because the fact that we are not operationally having this committee doesn't mean that the policy does not exist. It's two separate things. We need to delineate the conversation here. And I need to, I mean, if anyone knows strategic triangle, the beneficiaries are part of the process. You cannot limit the voices of students and parents when they are the ones that are being impacted.
There is no 7.
And assume that.
Hold on.
Can I just point out 2 things that are important to note about this? One is that the reason that I personally am against it is because then I feel like why don't we just have a committee about curriculum review? We've done things, we have committees. Why don't we have a committee on, X, Y, or Z? Why don't we have a committee on this? Then you start having committees on everything, and you're not relying on your admin to do it. The other thing I want to point out that's very important is that if you have teachers on these, those are Schedule B, and we're paying them.
Okay.
So these are this is another,
Doreen,
this is a financial.
Can I add on her point?
So Doreen, there's financial, I hear you, and curriculum. This is a blue ribbon school. The issues here of bullying, unless we are saying that it's not happening.
No, I'm just saying, I'm talking about precedents.
Hold on,
But the precedent has to do with bullying and sexual harassment and whatever harassment that exists that is impacting kids, that should have the same nutritional value of emotion not being tasked. Like right now, if you tell me to read anything and study, I'm emotionally impacted that I can't study. That's why if you look at the data from Albany, persons of color, people that look like me are not doing well in the schools because every time they are going through all this emotional discomfort. This is not unique to Hastings.
I know, but you could say the same thing about curriculum too. That's my fear is the precedent of it, Damaris, is that then you have the parents saying, I'm not really happy with the way the curriculum is. My child isn't learning correctly.
So you're comparing curriculum
they don't have
with
math.
Can I simplify this
So
for a
it's the
second?
precedent of setting committees.
Do we have a building leadership team
Can I simplify
that
this?
has parents?
Let me just
I'm
say,
shocked.
This
I am
policy does
shocked.
exist.
Yeah,
It's
I just
here.
wanted to interject to say that
Go
it's
ahead.
here.
Go ahead.
It is. If
Guys-
you look it up in the
Guys,
actual
the way this
policy
is being
manual, it's
presented
already
is
written.
what's not working at this meeting right now, okay? This policy exists already.
Yes.
This is already here. There is already a committee. This has already been agreed to. We're talking about language around the margins that's changing, not the addition of a committee. We really have to be crystal clear when we're talking about this, what we're doing. I think the way it's represented on board docs is accurate. And so I think it's fine. But I think we just need to be really clear on like what is being proposed as changes. And it looks everything looks legit here. It looks like the red is additions. I guess there's a different color, maybe 2 different people made changes to it. So that's why there's 2 different editors. And then the green is an addition. So this is...
The green is what we discussed. The green is the changes that the policy committee made.
And the red's from the attorneys?
And the red is from the
Correct,
attorneys.
and there's also
Right.
something missing in the notation I want to point out. For some reason, it didn't translate. There's a pink paragraph signal at the end of the paragraph, and in speaking with counsel, it's to denote that the paragraph is optional. So we have the option of
Right.
leaving it as is, changing it to the green, or removing it. And the one thing that I would just like to say is, from an operations perspective, one of the things to consider is, for example, if we have a site-specific incident, for example, right now, we see some elevated incidents at FMS. It would not necessarily mean that it definitely does not mean that we couldn't have a committee for FMS, focused on FMS, which is really what we've been doing, is mobilizing different voices around the plan that you'll be hearing on the 6th. It would probably make less sense to have a district-wide committee focused on certain things at the FMS level. And so I just, to Doreen's point, and I completely respect all of the points that have been stated this evening, because I think the key is we're all committed to preventing bullying and harassment and making sure that we're addressing these things as they're happening. However, it is an operations thing. I just wanted to add that piece.
Can I pick up on that? Because that's I've been trying to mention for 10 minutes here. The key thing for me is, well, there's 2 things. One, lost in this conversation is that what is proposed here in a weak form is duplicative of the strong form that is ongoing right now. We've discussed that there is outreach to students, to parents. There is essentially the committees. The administrators are tasked, charged, and judged by how they're handling this thing. And I think it's a mistake to put operational process into policy, because it ties the hands. Hold on. It is operational in the sense that we are saying that you must do this committee. You have to form this committee, even though you have, you essentially operationally have that committee already functioning. And it's the same people who would be running this are running that. It's as though we said, let's make a committee about the board. Well, why can't we just act as the board? Why do we need a committee about the board? It is duplicative of it. And the fact that it's optional is instructive, because NYSBA, or the state makes policy. There's 706 school districts in New York State, okay? And even in Westchester, policies have to be flexible to meet the different needs of different districts. We have districts in Westchester that have more students than our town have residents. We have districts that have more elementary schools than we have schools. We have districts where the central office is in a different building, and the administrators are not in touch with the building. Okay. And so when you have this, which is, to my eyes, if I'm looking at policy, I'm saying this is sort of a bureaucratic approach. And if you have a large bureaucratic school district, for New York State to say, hey, you have to make sure that you have this bureaucratic piece, that it's level with all the other bureaucracy, I see the value in that. But we don't have anything like a large bureaucratic district. We have the opposite. And we have very few administrators, and they're already doing beyond what is proposed here. It's already ongoing. They're already in charge of it. And they have jurisdiction that far exceeds the boundaries of this as only an advisory committee. So I don't see, as Bill had mentioned, I don't see the value add. I'm not saying we don't do this work. I'm saying the work's already getting done. So why do we put in a duplicative element and make it part of policy?
Okay, so I have another question. Why don't we want an advisory committee that brings the input, the voices of individuals? That this is bullying and harassment policy. That's what we are looking at. Okay, formerly 7550, which Doug has said it exists. The only thing is that we were not doing the work. It did exist. This document, the lawyers have looked at it, and it is not operational. The language is not operational language. And if it was an operational language, then the lawyers we have did not do.
That's the fault of it. Let
me say what I'm saying clearly. This is not an operational document. This is a policy document that the lawyers, the district lawyers, have looked at, and it is the verbiage is policy verbiage, not operational verbiage. They've looked at it. And it is in our right to have that. Policy is the input to the operations of the district. And is the policy is the only thing that we have as a board to allow the operations to work towards the outcome we are looking for, whilst we give the accountability towards the operation. You are cutting off the very beneficiaries, the very people that are being taxed to support. This is a public school, not a private school. It's a public school that is centrally part of this district. It's not a private school that is just for some people. So for a public school to have that assumption that parents and children voices will be problematic when it's playing an advisory role to the very thing that is impacting them is unbelievable. It is advisory. How do you make decisions without collecting the input of the diverse voices? And you put it in the bucket of experts. None of us are experts of bullying and harassment. Show me the classes you attended that taught you to give you any degrees on bullying and harassment.
So let me offer another look at what you're saying, Alex, versus what Damaris is saying. So I view the committee that exists, right, that was sort of assembled recently, and all the inputs that go into that, that's the same purpose. It's one and the same. So this is just sort of putting that paragraph in. We recognize that it was intended for like a really multifaceted, multi-building, so that's why we said one committee. Maybe the membership isn't exactly what the current committee is, I don't know, but I view it as sort of one and the same. We're already doing it. The committee exists. This is just solidifying that, and it's advisory. That was the other thing, because we initially it said had like implementation rights, which a committee doesn't have that. So we just sort of said it's more advisory in nature. So I think it's.
No, I hear your point. Here's my concern, and to pick up on something that Doug has said about edge cases, how does this not turn into us having two committees? One, which is our administrators are responsible for, and which is empowered in a deeper way, and a secondary. How is the committee not going to say, well, you have one in policy, you don't have that. You have your own thing, that's great, but you should have this other thing. And by the way, we're a very small district, so what ends up when we have multiple committees is the same set of administrators are on both. So I'm just saying, I just see it as duplicative. The goal, everything else in here, New York State is not made optional wisely. But I'm saying the fact that this is optional is what gives me pause to say, usually stuff like that is like, if your district needs this, you do that. And if I'm sitting here as a board and, and we're talking about all the stuff that this district's trying to accomplish, then I see it a duplicative effort as a sign that we're not using ourselves in the most efficient way possible.
Are you, just so I'm clear, Alex, you're referring to that paragraph in the green?
In addition, the superintendent will identify a district-wide committee.
And so optional, where are you getting that that's optional? I mean, it may just be optional and we have it in there, but I'm just.
The pink paragraph note at the end of it is a note from the.
It didn't show up in the.
The attorneys in bringing these updates had said this section was optional. Because of our deep commitment to transparency, we brought that forward to the board to look at, and it already is in the existing policy, Doug, as you flagged. So it was the option to pull it out or to leave it in. We modified it so that in this smaller district, having a district-wide committee, if we're going to have one, is far more effective than having 3 for the building or having one episodic for each building.
Just to understand, Doug, that there's
right now.
And we also modified it because there's no way a committee could implement things related to these topics. You could have advisory on the topics, but implementation with students and parents, just for a set of legal reasons, would be impossible, and thus would create false expectations, frankly, and I've lived that in my previous work, where you give parents and students the expectation of something they never can achieve, and they rightly so get more upset. So we're trying to prevent that by, if there's going to be, and it already exists, they're already saying we should have a committee. We do that more on an episodic basis. So we're just saying, okay, if we're going to have one, let's have it district-wide. Let's review it at the end of this coming year to see what value add it's provided. That may be an approach that the board could settle on.
Is that a recommendation you could make?
I think the recommendation is the revised language tries to position this as advisory, so the expectations are clear that it's district-wide as opposed to building-specific, and we would, as any policy, you could evaluate at the end of next year to see what's been the value add. Bearing in mind that one reason you don't really have the committee right now is because of the work it takes to staff and run a committee to be of some effect.
Doug, you had an observation, though? I don't know.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't feel like I didn't read this and prep for this with this kind of lens, and I actually don't feel prepared to have a conversation at 10:45 that has this. There seems like there's more than just what's behind this paragraph. There's a set of assumptions as to what that committee could or would address that's sitting behind this suggestion that I don't fully understand.
Yeah. So I mean, to give us a path forward, because I think given just the nature of my comments earlier in the meeting, given the parents I'm reaching out to, the students I'm reaching out to, the staff I'm reaching out to, I think it's a fair move that for the coming year to take the modified language that you have before you that strikes the idea of implementation, but it's advisory, getting that input, because one of the feedbacks very positive from a group of parents today was thank you and please keep listening. And this would be a way to keep listening for this coming year, because I think the reason we need data is I think we're going to have some clear eyes on the extent of the issues we are not a district in crisis. We have individuals hurting, and we have to address that, but we have to bring data to it and the kind of conversation this committee could provide at an advisory level. And if the board sees fit, that will be something for the coming year we will run and then evaluate at the end of next year.
And I just want to share, I think that makes sense. I guess a proposal I would have is that we take that suggestion, the policy committee works it in the next meeting, and for the second read, I don't know if there's time between now and a second read. I mean, certainly a first read gives the opportunity to provide suggestions that would then get worked into a second version, and so that's an option here. But I do, I heard earlier in the meeting, Dr. Lang's suggestion, and you brought it up most recently too, about transparency of how things are being, frameworks in which things are being implemented, and I think that is an underlying theme underneath many of your comments on this topic recently. I don't know where and how that fits into this policy. What I'm hearing from you, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's an assumption that you want to keep that forefront of mind. Is it clear? Is the framework clear in which people are being, in which this is being thought through and administered throughout the district? But I don't know if there's more behind that committee. I mean, I think what would be helpful for me is if people who have been thinking about this think a little bit more about, the suggestion from Dr. McCursey, which I think is a potentially useful one, and come back with a second read with more clarity. I would find that personally useful. I don't know if the rest of the group would or not, but I would personally find that more useful.
That is, thank you, Doug. My concern is the consistency. That's what I meant by the transparency thing. We have those tokenized care stuff here, this committee here, BLT, buildings leadership, parents are part of it. This policy of student harassment and bullying, forget remove the black face, put a white face there, which has to do with harassment and bullying. We are trying to belittle it. That's what is irritating me sitting here. For me, that is what is irritating me, that we have parents in all kinds of committees. Every building has a building leadership team that PTSA keeps sending announcement out, get parents to sit on it. When it comes to, again, remove race, okay, enough already, okay, if you can't put weight on race, I hear you, but put a white face down that is undergoing student harassment and bullying. And this policy, we are butchering it as if it is nothing. It's irritating me. Is this the Hastings that we live in? That and yes, things shouldn't fly out to the news. We all agree on that. But we cannot sit here and pretend something that is happening in all schools. In all schools, not just Hastings, in all schools. We want to emphasize on positive so much that we are trying to belittle it. Let me tell you how it works. When you want to show how something is good, don't lower it, pull up. But what we are trying to do is lower and give a false pretense of a gap. We all sit in this work. You do this. You're an expert in organization. I ask you for advice. We all know how some of these things work. So for me, I'm not going to pretend I don't know what I'm doing. I sit in meetings about this. This is not the only place I sit in meetings. So for me, I'm irritated. And I'm sorry if I'm just blaring it out, but this is not something that what we should be talking about is that we should make sure it's advisory. So what are the parameters that we're going to put in place so that parents don't think they're entitled? This is the conversation I want us to say that let's take it all out. So it's optional.
So just to be clear, so Damaris, just so you know, I think we should get rid of all parent committees, so the building leadership team.
Then I'll go with you on that.
Right, so this is not, I'm not opposed to this for this reason. I'm opposed to those committees
I will
general,
agree with you.
So that's
You
why.
remember, I agree with you 100% when you said the calendar should be, and I'm saying it publicly, the calendar should be bare bone, and I'm like, let it be real bare bone. But you don't leave, you get what I'm trying to say? You don't leave.
That's what I think.
This is like inequity in your face.
So
I
think
I've talked too much.
From what I heard from Bill was the input is welcome and we want to encourage that. How we do that could be a committee, could be other ways. And what I heard from you, Doug, if I'm not mistaken, on what we should do as a policy committee group is kind of identify the framework so that we're clear on how it works, right? Charter it, Doug, is that kind of accurate?
May I make a suggestion? No, not in policy, please. I would just,
Separate for the committee.
I would recommend that the board focus on the language that's here, that I played a role in modifying, to then charge the superintendent to come up with and I would say for the coming year, by the September launch it would build quite well in the outreach I'm already doing with Melissa, which I reported on earlier, is this language to stand. And we'll get it rolling, we'll see how it works, and we'll evaluate it. But if the board wants to come in and put more frameworks and details, will take forever to do that. The committee will not get rolling, as opposed to let's get rolling, get the input, and by taking out the word implementing, we are creating the correct expectations. That this committee is there to bring voice and perspective from these various roles on a district-wide basis that at some points may apply to any one of the 3 schools, but because it's district-wide, it'll stand some sense of coherence for us as a small district. And then just mid-year, give you an update on it, as we would with other data information on behavioral issues, and at the end of the year, and can decide if it's worth continuing.
And do we want to put a sunset clause in it, or we just verbally say we'll look at it again?
I think we could verbally say we'll look at it again, because you have full right as a board to look at policy at any point. We did discuss that a bit, and attorneys and wise people to my right, Maureen and Melissa, said you really don't need to build that in because you can automatically come back to policy at really any point.
Yeah.
And if
I'm good with it as written.
I mean, I certainly, I support your position, Bill. The only thing I would point out here is that with the idea of sunset, things that get in motion tend to stay in motion. And, I still haven't heard, and I support your position, but I still haven't heard how this won't be duplicative of the effort that you guys are already expressing. And if you're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it, but that's just a concern that I have.
No, I hear that, and I think because the duplicative issues, there are only so many of us, and I think would be folding in those other efforts to then give this life. So, meaning coming out of this outreach now underway is to say then next year's, in a leaner way, some of those groups that have been reached out to would become part of this committee. And the commitment would be that mid-year we'd have a conversation with the board as to how well that committee's working, and then at the end of the year make a decision whether it should continue or not. But then we'll have information under our belt.
Okay.
Is that?
And then one last thing, if I can, Bill. The problem with this, for me also, is that versus some other committees, which I don't agree with, but for this one in particular, there's so much that can't be shared that is sensitive information, it's personal information. So when you have a committee and they're like, well, what happened at this event? And what are you going to do when you have, did this person get properly punished? And there's so much that can't be shared that I'm not sure how effective a committee like this could be. That's all.
Doreen, now I know where you are coming from. So now I'm not, that's what you're saying?
I'm more clear than you are.
So now I'm not going to talk against you. I mean, I'm not going to say this against you. So now I'm understanding that concern, because then it doesn't become productive. It becomes a gossip channel of nothingness. So that I understand, but that is where the operational piece is important, because collecting voices, maybe I'm just assuming that what I know can be extrapolated here. You and I have spoken on processes that I've shared with you, because I see it as a place of, okay, let me just say this. We all know the budget situation that happened last year, and people assumed, and I'm saying this publicly again, people assumed that, oh, I had some cronies saying no with me. Those supposedly cronies, there's no one person that I know said no. All of them said yes, and there was no fight, because it's okay for people to have their own head on their necks. So that being said, I agree with you 100%. If this committee is not established properly operationally, it will be a complete disaster. What happened to that, a lot of incidents happened, but this whole thing that went into the news that none of us want for our community that we call home, for people to be pointing fingers at that, was uncalled for. So I agree with both of you. My concern is for us to remove such a damaging thing, which I agree is damaging, then the onus should be on how do we implement it. It should be, is it that it becomes an intentional selection? You know, we can put all kinds of things. That is where I feel it's operational, that we should say that, okay, how are you doing the committee? How are you establishing the committee? And when we are like this, what are you going to talk about? You shouldn't talk about such matters that are FEPA. I mean, I think we should for me, that's where the expertise comes in, that we should allow the expert to create a committee that doesn't become a gossip channel of craziness. Does that make sense?
I mean, it's just for prevention.
Yeah.
It's not to discuss
Yeah.
issues I mean, it's about prevention.
Correct, prevention, that's the word.
It says that. It's not about discussing what goes on.
But it'll happen.
I mean,
No, but
I'm okay
it's
with
not for
Bill's-
that.
Bill's suggestion is essentially, there are advisory committees that are very valuable. There's experts in them that have broad frame, they don't need the details. They have broad framing, categorical understanding of things that are valuable. Now, maybe we find out, well, we can't get that kind of committee together. Well, the committee that gets together here wants the darn details, they want to go into the gossip, and it's just not a good use of time. And then we find out at the end of next year, experiment failed.
Exactly.
And we're going to take it out. But
I
you know,
feel we should
Bill's
do
okay.
selection.
But
That's
if-
what I'm saying.
But
That is
if,
still
but if,
pushing.
but if,
Sorry.
but if that's the policy, and Bill says, let's have a go at it, I'm willing to give a go at it. So, I mean, my proposal now is we move on to, this is now in read 2 at this point, because I think we're all pretty much aligned. I looked at the next one, I'm cool with that one, I'm willing to
That
move
one
on
has
to the
no-
next. Right,
that
there's
didn't have
nothing
any
there.
comments.
I'm willing to move on to the next topic if everyone else is.
Yeah, I am willing to. So thank you for
Did Sylvia
explaining
and Jeremy
it. I'm
have
sorry,
any, I mean,
didn't-
we've been doing a lot of talking. Sylvia and Jeremy, did you have any comments on it at all?
You got 10 seconds.
Thank you for all that.
I think you guys more than hashed it.
Are you on my side or not? That's what I want to know.
You know me, I'm always Switzerland.
Yeah,
Until
exactly.
I have to vote.
It's valuable stuff. All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody. All right, moving on to agenda review.
Yeah, just very quickly, please look at June 6th. You will have an executive session on collective bargaining, and we'll bring that topic to you at that point. Very exciting. You'll get a science research presentation that's Melissa Shandroff and several of her students will be sharing with you the work that really is quite extraordinary. We did that several years ago, and we brought that back. It'll be at the front end. And then you will have an update on some of the curriculum review work. So it's a good substantive meeting for you. And yes, as you may recall from, feels like years ago, but earlier in the meeting, the FMS update. Then on the 20th, you'll be busy. We'll start at 5:15 with an executive session discussion on representative staff salaries. Then at 5:45, shift into an hour's executive session on security. And that's ahead of public hearing that evening. And that's a standard annual moment for you to look at and you will see in confidence in executive session certain aspects of the security plan that we do not share beyond executive session. And very important, you have another very important reception that night, retirees with recognition at the front end of the meeting.
I only have on my calendar, I only have the executive session that starts at 5:45 to 6:45.
We've updated this as of today, so.
Okay, so I'll be getting an
okay.
invite. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
we'll
Just
get you
making
one.
sure that I
Yeah,
didn't.
it is a
this
longer
isn't wrong, or
time,
I'm not
but
wrong.
we're in the end of the year and things get busy.
Got it. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And last thing, though, annual organizational meeting, we do need to set a time for that. We tend to have it during the day, and then it's late in the hours. I don't think you want to get into this discussion right now, but you do need a retreat this summer, and some boards combine that day into their annual organizational meeting and their board retreat. But that's something that you can come back to later. But we do need to set a time. We would recommend, again, it being during the day, your organizational meeting, not at night. Currently, it's showing on the calendar at night.
So not doing it on 7/11, you're suggesting doing it in August?
No,
and doing the whole
No,
thing?
parceling it into 7-Eleven.
So 7-Eleven has to be your annual organizational meeting, in the
Oh, I
least
see.
moving
I see.
that to a midday meeting, and then not to be considered it's too late. But I would say on the 6th, you will want to discuss the possibility of having your retreat on that day, And maybe Alex, you can, or Melissa D, could do some polling.
Yeah.
Between now and then.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Any questions about the agenda? No? Moving on, Board of Education comments. Anyone?
Nobody is allowed to have a comment. Except
If I have a very brief comment, I just want to thank Melissa and the curriculum review cycle. It's a small thing, but I saw that note about the physical education review, and this is the kind of small work that people only see the value of when it becomes valuable. But to me, someone would say, why are you reviewing physical education? But what came out of that was something really interesting, where you sort of identified a gap that children with poor gross motor skills didn't have a real entree into the physical education program, and you identify that. And when I hear that, I say to myself, that's a kid who might, with support of in phys ed, move on to mod, maybe, and it's those little tiny details that I'm very appreciative of that work that's getting done. So thank you.
They're also refining units and working on some longitudinal measures, so they're doing great work.
Yeah, so thank you.
So I would throw out, a couple hours ago, we had a celebration of tenure candidates, and of course, we had 5 excellent candidates. I didn't get a chance to mention it then, but having 5 excellent candidates starts with our principals in their hiring choices, and then as we saw their colleagues come out, it continues with our current teachers supporting each other the way they have. So it speaks really well to our district's current successes in hiring, and it was an exciting night to see.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Oh, right on. Is there a second?
Second.
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks for helping
Thanks.
bring up my thoughts. What's that?
Thank you.